Hello, beautiful creatures of the world. Before we begin today's show, we need to preface it. Since we have finished filming the episode, breaking news has come from the post-millennial that both the cyber truck driver in Las Vegas and the driver of the Ford F-150 in New Orleans both served at the same military base. This information is coming from the Post-Millennial at thepostmillennial.com or the Post-Millennial on X. Go and check them out. They are a great wealth of knowledge in the alternative media space. Once again, the cyber truck driver from Las Vegas and the driver of the Ford F-150 in New Orleans both served at the same military base. With that being said, on with today's show. Beautiful creatures of the world, and welcome back to Coffee with Kerri-Lynn. It is a beautiful but slicker day here in the far north of Maine, up along the Canadian border. If you are driving on the roads, pay attention to the weather conditions in the crown of Maine. I hope everybody is having a beautiful day wherever you might be. I hope you're having a day filled with fabulosity and dang good coffee. Y'all gonna need dang good coffee. We are going to be talking today about the terror attacks that happened in the United States. 2 days into January, ladies and gentlemen, beautiful creatures of the world. And I am taking umbrage with some podcasters, well-known podcasters, as a matter of fact, because they are taking situations that are most likely the normal course of business in big cities and in small cities. Violence is a big business in the cities, ladies and gentlemen, beautiful creatures of the world. And they are taking these small stories that are huge to the people in the area, but they're small stories, and they're trying to weave them into the tapestry of the narrative of terrorism. And I think that it is absolutely appalling that this is going on. Why is this going on with these podcasters? Ladies and gentlemen, podcasting is a big business. It's big business. There are tiers of podcasting. There is the low level, the bottom basement dwellers, which would be my podcast. I don't have a big audience. I'm not monetized. I don't rely on the internet to make a paycheck, so I can pretty much still say what I want to say as long as the platform allows me to say it. They're always dropping me to the bottom of the algorithm because I'm always saying things that they don't want people to hear, which is fine with me. I'm not controlled or governed by a paycheck. There are the podcasters that are the mid-level podcasters. This is where you're going to find your Tim Pools. You're going to find your Jeremy from The Quartering. You're going to find We Are Changed, Luke Radowski. You're going to find all those guys on this mid-tier level. They do live shows. They capture great audiences. They do big numbers. They make a living off of podcasting. That is wonderful for them. They would like to be the big players in the world, and they've been doing this for a very long time. Then you have the big podcasters. You have like the Daily Wire. You have your Glenn Becks. Then you have your Joe Rogans, the king of podcasting. And everybody wants to aspire to have podcasts like Joe Rogan. And somewhere in between the mid-level and the bottom basement people like me, there is a whole bunch of podcasters that have been doing this for 10, 15 years. And they've really been breaking their bones to do and have very successful shows. However, when everybody is talking about the big news, it is very hard to come behind them and reiterate what they're saying because they're getting all the likes and the views on the bigger shows. So what do? You grab a different angle. And I'm watching, remember, we're the tier between me, the basement bottom, and the mid guy. And in between me and them is this whole range of podcasting shows. And these people have thousands and thousands of subscribers, and they want to deliver the news. And podcasting is a big business. And now they're taking individual events from around the country that happened on January 1st. And they're trying to weave this tapestry, marry it all together, and saying, hey, there's a bigger picture of terrorism, and shame on you if you are doing that, because I caught a couple of you. So let's be very clear as to what has been classified terrorism. The events classified as terrorism was the tragic event that happened in New Orleans. We have a lot of people injured, and we have a lot of people that are no longer on this earth. And our thoughts and prayers are with each and every person that has been affected by this nonsensical act of terrorism. Are Las Vegas and New Orleans connected? I can see some connections. Doesn't take a rocket scientist to see that a message was trying to be sent to either Elon Musk, President Trump, or both. Let's deal with New Orleans, because there's a lot of information that is coming out of that tragedy. We do not mention a person who perpetrates violent acts against other people. We do not mention them by name on my channel, because we're not going to push their name into infamy. The guy that was driving the truck was driving a Ford F-150 Lightning, which is an electric vehicle. The guy that was driving the truck in New Orleans had a flag attached to the truck, which caused a big stir because authorities did try to cover that fact up. The guy that perpetrated the tragedy in New Orleans was a United States citizen. He had served in the military. The guy who perpetrated the violent act in New Orleans also had some sketchy bullshit on his social media. You need to understand, we talk about it all the time on my channel. Children roaming the internet, the great playground that we call the internet. Children that roam the internet unsupervised get into the deep, dark crevices of this playground, and they can be corrupted. They can be radicalized. They can have their minds warped and twisted. And so can adults. There are adults that do not know how to discern fact from fiction, good from bad. And these adults may have had tragedies in their lives. They may be vulnerable from events that occurred in their lifetime, and they are also susceptible to being radicalized. And we need to understand that. The dark recesses of the internet pulls damaged people into it, whether they are children or they are adults. So we do not know exactly why the man who drove the truck through the crowd in New Orleans did it. What led up to his radicalization to hate his fellow citizen, to hate his country. We don't know the facts of that yet. I'm sure in time, the FBI may tell us. In Las Vegas, the person that pulled the Tesla into the valet area and ignited the explosion, we have very little information about that person. That person has passed away. That person filled that Tesla with fireworks, explosive materials, because we're on YouTube, and ignited the car, hoping it would take out the whole fascia of Trump Tower. Both the New Orleans and the Las Vegas incident, both cars were rented through a platform called Turo. From my understanding, Turo is a peer-to-peer, I have a car, you need a car, you can borrow my car, or a car rental thing. And both of these electric vehicles were rented through the Turo platform. Could New Orleans been avoided? Most likely. A few years ago in France, there was a horrible tragedy at a Christmas festival where a vehicle was driven through a crowd and many people were hurt, injured, and expired because we're on these platforms. So what France did is they placed barriers that can be put up and taken down to prevent this from ever happening again. New Orleans, with all the festivities that go on there, they saw what France was doing with these barriers, and they too installed barriers. And on that particular day, somebody didn't put the barrier up. And I think that this is also what is driving some of the speculation that the driver of the Ford F-150 Lightning, I think it's fueling some of the speculation that he didn't do it alone. Those barriers should have been up. Somebody dropped the ball, and somebody should be losing a job. At the very least, they should be losing a job. They should be absolutely investigated as to why those barriers were not in play that day. Those two incidences, New Orleans and Las Vegas, I believe are part of the terrorist attacks. Now, there are other incidences that happened all over the United States of America on January 1st. And we have podcasters that are trying to weave all of this into the New Orleans, Las Vegas terrorism tapestry. And I just think that that's wrong. And I think that they're separate. In cities, big cities, little cities, the normal course of business in cities, day-to-day business that the police handle is violent. And that is, I think, a big thing where the violence gets elevated during times of celebration because people are gathering, people are imbibing in spirits, they're imbibing in their DOCs, and everybody's just kind of floating out there and having a good time. And that is a good time, so it seems, for people who want to do seedy, violent activity to actually ramp it up and do it when the people that they're after are at their most vulnerable. I got a lot of texts yesterday. I got a lot of links. I got a lot of information from people about the mass shooting in Kankakee, Illinois, because podcasters were headline mass shooting. The world is going crazy. Absolutely. People are losing their shite. And Kankakee is one of those situations where the headlines came out big. Mass shooting in Illinois. We have people that are no longer with us through that shooting. And it was a house party, ladies and gentlemen. Beautiful creatures of the world. But It was all being thrown out into the public sphere at the same time as New Orleans was being thrown out, at the same time Las Vegas was going on, and the headlines coming out in Kankakee, Illinois area was mass shooting. It was at a house party. So we can take that one off the table for the podcasters that are trying to weave that into the terrorism narrative. We have a few more, ladies and gentlemen, beautiful creatures of the world. Yesterday in Las Vegas, there was a hostage situation. A bus on Fremont Street was hijacked. That suspect is in custody at the moment. And apparently nobody was hurt in that situation, thank God. Was it related to the Tesla incident? I don't think so. I think it was just another case of the world is losing its shite. People are going crazy, and we don't know why this person tried to hijack or did hijack that bus and held the people on that bus hostage. But I think it will come out that it has nothing to do with the Tesla incident. And once again, violence is the normal course of business that the police in big cities and little cities and small towns handle. So that's what I think that was. There was a couple things that happened in New York City. First, I want to deal with the one that everybody is trying to really push into a narrative of terrorism. And that is the shooting that happened in front of the nightclub in Queens. So what ended up happening in Queens was there was a mass shooting in front of a nightclub. There was about 15 people waiting in the queue. The building was filled to capacity. Everybody was having a good time. They were partying. And four males, walking eastbound up the road. There was 10 to 15 people in the queue waiting to get in. Those men, 3 to 4 of those men, opened fired on the nightclub. And there were 10 injured people in that incident. The men then fled into a light-colored sedan with out-of-state plates. That was the getaway car. I want you to listen to what the New York City Police Chief of Patrol had to say when reporters were questioning him, because we have a few podcasters out there that are trying to, once again, weave this story into the tapestry of terrorism. And let's give a listen to what the New York City Police Chief of Patrol had to say.
I will now take a few questions.
Chief, do you believe this to be gang-related, and can you talk about the motivation behind this?
That's one of the avenues that we're pursuing, but it's too early to determine right now.
Are you considering this a terrorist attack?
This is not a terrorist attack.
Appears it might be gang violence, ladies and gentlemen, beautiful creatures of the world. That is what our Chief of Patrol for the New York City Police had to say about the shooting of the nightclub in Queens. Now, the last bit that we are going to talk about, which I've watched podcasters try to weave into the terrorism narrative, is yesterday. In New York City, there was an Antifada march. Pro-Palestinian Antifada march in New York City happened last night. These marches happen all the time in New York City, both pro-Palestinian and pro-Israeli. They're always protesting. They're always standing on corners. Sometimes they march and there's 10 of them. Sometimes they march and they protest and there's 100 people in the protest. Sometimes there is 1,000 people on the streets protesting, and there is not a lot of coverage because it is a normal course of the day in New York City. There's always protests, whether it's pro-Palestinian or it's pro-Israeli. They're always protesting something. If you are a content creator Stop trying to make mountains out of molehills. You're not doing anybody a service. And I'm talking like there's a bunch of content creators that are doing this, and they're not saying it is, or I think they're telling people the story of terrorism, the 2 terroristic events that did happen in our country to start the new year with. And then they are expanding on these other stories. So it's not a good practice. It's speculation. It's innuendo. It's leading your audience down a path that may not be correct. Could some of these instances be terrorism? Could be. I highly doubt it. Could be. Could be things are heating up all over the place in the United States. What we do know is, even though podcasters do not have formal training in journalism, you need to be responsible with your words, what you say and how you say it to people. What information you have, you need to be responsible in how you present that information. Got a lot of texts. I got a lot of emails yesterday. I got a lot of texts. We were on the road. I was looking into this, that, and the other. And I don't do breaking news unless it's real breaking news. And I don't like to come on and be wrong. And I don't want to have to come on the next day and apologize for lack of understanding of what was going on. So I really wait a day while everything in the world is falling apart and everybody's trying to get in on the monetization. I have the luxury of waiting a day and then try to sift out what other people are saying and try to look at the links that are being sent to me. I'm a one-woman operation, ladies and gentlemen, beautiful creatures of the world. I conceived the show. I am the producer of the show. I am the editor of the show. I am the star of the show. And if a show is going to have my name on it, I want to make sure that I have the right information to get out to the world. And I wish that more podcasters were doing the same thing. And I'm even watching some podcasts that have a small team behind them drop the ball on this one. Like I said, you can be a podcaster, you can tell the story, you can give the facts. But when you start sliding into innuendo, when you start sliding into speculation, that's where the real damage on the internet comes from. Ladies and gentlemen, beautiful creatures of the world, be the kindness that you want to see in the world. Live from your heart. That's the mantra 2025. Live from your heart. It's a beautiful thing to have an open heart, to be empathetic, to have sympathy for others in need, to have compassion. Following your heart, following your dreams, your hopes and your desires will absolutely manifest beautiful, wonderful events in your life. Ladies and gentlemen, beautiful creatures of the world, no matter what's going on in the world, live your life to its fullest. Carpe Diem, beautiful creatures, because no one promises us a tomorrow. And always fact check and Google, DuckDuckGo, the Brave browser. Always do your due diligence. Don't just take the word of somebody who has a camera and has the ability and the cojones to get online and run their mouth. Always double check the facts. And have a happy day.